in the last couple of years, there's been over $200,000 per year to about 2,000 families. Reforesting more than 500 hectares with different types of native plants, attaining USDA and Fair Trade certification, the $50,000 in the social premium fund, which I mentioned, and also the Ecuadorian side of the company exports over 10,000 pounds of processed waste per month. These are some of our funders. I think it's important to mention that we get funding. The nonprofit side gets all of its own funding. We get no funding from the for-profit side. There are partners, we work with them, but they get all of their own funding from investors and sales and things like that, and we get all of our own funding from organizations. And then we have some of our partners listed here. Thank you.
Thank you so much again, and please note down all your questions, and you have plenty of time to ask them at the end of the presentation. And right now we'll call Mr. Tom Buick from Right to Choice Foundation.
This way,
move the slide as click the. Yeah. Okay. Oops, I'll move back. Okay. So my name is Tom Buick. I work for the Rainforest Foundation, which is an international human rights and conservation organization. We have offices here in New York City, London, and Oslo. And in each organization, in each country works somewhat autonomously, but we all share the same mission and a lot of the same funds from Sting concerts. But then we also, that's true. And then we also, we have our own programs and our own other resources that we use for projects. Kind of the three pillars of how we work are, and we work directly with indigenous communities, the most vulnerable indigenous communities, and indigenous communities that live in tropical rainforests. In the case of the US, we work in Latin America almost exclusively, and most of that work is in the Darien Gap of Panama, which is between the border of Colombia and Panama, and in the Peruvian Amazon. Although in the past we've worked in Belize, Colombia a lot, for years and years in Brazil, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Guyana. Anyway, so the pillars is protecting lands, meaning protecting indigenous lands, which better said to be territories. Strengthening organizations, meaning strengthening indigenous organizations, empowering them, and influencing policy. All are linked. And with the work I'm going to show you, I think hopefully you can see that all three pillars undermine what we try to do with each of our projects, with the broader goal of ensuring that rights are respected and that tropical forests are maintained, and maintained by the very inhabitants that have traditionally occupied those forests. And so we kind of have a few project areas we work in. Anyway, just put this up to show you what this is in Peru, but you could replace, I could tell you that's in the Darien Gap, or in southern Peru, northern Peru. It's a typical indigenous village, and you can see how vulnerable this kind of scene is to climate change. Food security, everything they eat, they get basically on a daily basis from fishing or from chakras, small farms. And so any kind of if there's a drought, if there's a flood, if there's a problem with transportation or infrastructure, then first people would suffer are communities like this. This is actually the Marañón River in Peru. I just this last week. And then in Panama, anyway, I just want to get to, so one of the main focuses of Rainforest Foundation work has always been land titles. I feel like indigenous communities need to have their title. They need to know, they have to have, know where their land is, that they have the right to protect it, right to use it, and kind of what we call exclusion rights, right, to tell people that they can't come in and exploit resources or occupy their land. In Panama, so this is a very active work we're doing right now. What's highlighted on this map are indigenous areas in the Darien and British Columbia that are not titled. So, without the title, the government will also often view these areas as just empty. There's no one there, or it's not. We should develop it because it's just unused. So that's where these kind of areas are the most vulnerable, most likely to be converted by land use policy to say palm oil, forest concessions, dams, extractives such as mining and oil, cattle ranching, moving what indigenous call colonos, which is just a Latino that's not indigenous, into those areas. Say if one area is too crowded, they'll move them in and say, here's some free land for your ranch. And so it's quite urgent to get these titles. And the mapped out areas are areas that, with our support, the local communities have done their mapping, determined this is our area of traditional use, and these are the titles we're applying for. We have a few of these now, but there's a lot of work to do with that. And this poor Google map does not show roads or anything, but basically in Panama, the Pan-American Highway goes to about here. Actually, you can see where it is because of deforestation. And then just ends. And then so all this area is just basically, it's just forest and communities. However, it's under a lot of threat. And the threats that the communities we work with face are kind of true all over the world. And I'm sure Eliana, you've noticed the same thing in Ecuador. It's land use change, logging, and then extractive industries are the three main kind of threats to the land. You consistently see at every conference I go to, people all over the world come in and they kind of have talk about the same issues. And then kind of going to the mapping. So we feel really strongly about mapping and monitoring. I think that they're combined. And what communities do is they'll go out and so we were using the tablets, which we have an application in, and then they take the photo, they take the GPS, they fill out a form, so they have systematized information database that goes into one folder, and then we can make maps, which I'll show you in a minute. And this is a great practice as well, just because a lot of communities benefit so much from just going out and recognizing the value of their land. Now, like I mentioned, you have to look at, this isn't just empty wasted land. It has a lot of value. It had, all the biodiversity, medicinal plants, I've seen the carbon storage issue. And for indigenous communities, it has additional value, which is cultural, which is precisely why, if you look at kind of forest maps in different countries, particularly this is very pronounced in Latin America, almost all intact rainforest is now inhabited by indigenous people. There's a reason for that, because they have kind of an intrinsic cultural value to that forest and are a lot less likely to say, this would be better off if a few cows were here instead of trees, or if it was palm oil. Yes, it is more profitable financially per hectare that way, but they have a different vision of value of land. So kind of going back to a conservation model, climate change, which one that makes them very vulnerable, but it should be the other model. This should be the most respected territories and peoples because they are actually doing the work of protecting rainforests, which hold 50% of greenhouse gases. And so the mapping, we collect data, and then as much as possible, and this varies by community, by area, we try to lay off as much of the work as possible through local communities. So here's the data, this is how you plug it into the database, this is how you put it into a map. Oops. And it's quite empowering often I like this photo because in this particular community, they had never even seen an aerial satellite image of their land. So it's quite interesting that we got one and printed it out, and just to say this is your territory. And you can even see on this, look how here's their title, which you can see the points of the map, and then around it is all deforested. So it's just striking, and this is just a typical example. And then then it really brings it to home for these communities when they can see, look at this, look at the encroaching pressures. We have to step up our territorial security and our protection, and they are vulnerable. And in fact, with our mapping, we identified already ranches that were moving into their title. I'm sure you see this all over. And so it's a constant battle. This is the kind of maps we make, and so basically we'll have people go out and they map different values in their forest. This is kind of what they, kind of the agriculture area. This is the forest they want to save, and these are some icons we use. And then you show that to the community and say, look at, and they identify medicinal plants, timber species, cultural sites, everything possible. Actually, we're doing a cool one down in southern Peru in October, where they found ancient stone bases they call the rostros of the Haraku people. Anyway, this is really helpful for conservation because it just kind of brings to home for the communities and to the outside world that this land is occupied, it has certain values, and the rights of the people protecting it need to be respected. Now, moving down to Peru, we work in the northern Amazon, kind of the border of Ecuador or the border of Colombia, which is about 80% of the Peruvian Amazon is oil concessions. Doesn't mean that's all going to be oil, but the practices that are existing are appalling. And in this case, this is a spill. I just took this photo about 10 days ago. This is a spill in near the Marañón River, which becomes the Amazon River. It's Iquitos. And there we've identified over 500, or our indigenous monitors have identified over 500 impact sites, which we call it. And it's just disgusting. This one they're actually cleaning up because it did get some media attention. But there's so many that have just been left to rot that have been there 10, 20, 30 years. And it's a huge threat. And I mean, and obviously the contamination issue is the samples that have been taken have revealed heavy metals, oil derivatives in fish, in animals, and now we're going to be testing people soon, and that'll be interesting. We hope that they're not contaminated, but if they are, it obviously be an issue. And then this is kind of this was done a couple of years ago, and I'm sorry that I don't know how to blow it up, but I think it doesn't matter. We have a short time, but this is a huge mapping of the oil concession where I just showed you that spill. And these are the concession zones, and these are where they take off the oil. These are some of the villages. And they went out and they mapped. So this kind of says, the lot 192, which is the concession, is not empty. It's inhabited by people. So this is the kind of mapping we do to show, look, this isn't just an empty forest. These are where we hunt, we fish, we have sacred sites. There's little communities throughout here. And the idea of this mapping is so the oil company, the government can see what the impact is of this kind of exploitation. And that also empowers the communities just to take more charge of their land and feel more ownership of it and proactively protect it more once they have the map and actually carry out this process. And yeah, here's some of our monitors and mappers in Peru. And they make their own uniforms. And we moved from the tablets, we use phones now. We found these Google tablets to be they don't last very long in the jungle. They're better for cafes, Brooklyn. And but now we use more durable phones to do this kind of monitors. Are a little tougher. Yeah, well, Google gave us the free tablet, so we took them, but they don't last in the jungle. Here's the monitors out working, and they're out looking at oil. This is an oil. No, this is a garbage dump by the company right there. And so yeah, territory recognition up there. Yeah, and then also, but by the use of the technology, they learn how to use the technology, and they get into it. And it's really important that I know I like some. You get criticisms for this, trying to we heavily encourage communities to learn how to use computers, tablets, GIS, all this stuff, and it's often quite a big jump for them, and it's not traditional, but they need it. They really need this stuff. They need access to information. The technology makes the work they do so much more efficient, and I find it overall to be empowering, just because they can take their own initiative with technology. Which and it happens. Also, by doing the monitoring, they become experts of their own land. our monitors know in Peru know all about oil contamination. They know how the pipelines work. They know how the business works. They know the stages of exploration. Now they do the presentations to their own communities, which is a huge success. This takes a while. This is a few years we've worked with these guys. Your monitor again out documenting some. And then just a few other kind of things we're getting into. One is what we call energy independence in solar. Really into it. We did a couple of pilot projects in Panama, and you know, it works. It's a matter of maintenance, but it's a great alternative. In a lot of the areas in the forest, there's obviously no energy, and the central government will often say, well, we'll just give them gasoline plants, or we'll make a hydroelectric dam, or all this stuff that's very expensive, impractical, and kind of continues, you know, perpetuates that paternalistic state-community relationship that's existed for centuries. And in many cases, it's company paternalistic relationship with the communities, because the company is the only, you know, the only team in town or whatever, and you know, they'll depend on them for jobs, and then it just you get into this kind of vicious cycle relationship between the community and the company. And we think the solar power is a good option. In fact, we're working with the government of Peru right now, and in the Lower Australia, that spill, we also do legal support. It's another thing we do. And you know, kind of as Aliana was saying, bringing in a network for communities. In this case, these are three of the chiefs or apus that we work with, and then. You know, these are, this is, you know, technical support. This woman is from eTech International, is an oil engineer. He's a partner at a law firm in New York, and she's a partner at a law firm in Lima. And they're supporting the communities and negotiating with the oil company to get the cleanup and to get a settlement. This is all pro bono. We're going to take it from it. But we're hoping that can be reinvested in solar for part of that. For example, the communities are really into that idea. And then drones. I'm really into drones now. We were just flying these. This is just 2 weeks ago, and I think it's an amazing technology for territorial protection. This one, you can fly at 16 kilometers there and back. It runs on autopilot. You put whatever camera you want in there, and we just got amazing images. We got mapping. We could document all the oil spills. And we're hoping within a couple of years that all these communities have their own drones. And I think that, and we get the time call, and that's it anyway. Yeah, all right.
Thank you very much. This sounds quite interesting. We're going to do something that we're supposed to do in the beginning. We're going to let everyone just introduce themselves, just say your name and about 15 to 20 seconds, just present yourself to the rest of the group. All right, yeah, we'll start.
Hey everybody, my name is Adam Haas. I organize with a group called Sustain US here in the US, and we send delegations to climate talks in the AC area. And we also most recently started an organizing project in Pennsylvania on the front lines of fracking, just working with folks that have been impacted by gas extraction, water's been contaminated, or we're dealing with other pollution from companies.
Hi everyone, my name is Aisha Muhammad. I will be a student as part of the Cognitive Society program at Columbia starting next Tuesday. I'm an ex-meteorologist, and right now I work with underrepresented students of color and career development in New York City at nonprofits. Hi, my name is Julie. I'm from Paris. I'm within the organization called IMIX, I'm the same organization, and I'm directing the action team. Empowering young people who work about climate and energy issues and also climate issues.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniela Gutierrez. I'm from Bogota, Colombia, and currently I'm in the Water and Climate Change Research Project of Climates, and also I work at Waste Partnership in Colombia, a project that aims to connect environmental accounts with policy decisions.
Hello, my name is Miriam Sumobursa. I'm from Colombia. Currently I am studying my master's degree in environmental law at the Sorbonne University in Paris, and I am part of Climate since last year. I am a member of the project Coping Institute, and I am responsible of work with the Latin America region.
My name is Nicolás Zambrano. I'm from Ecuador. I'm a member of the Dialogue Movement on Climate Change of Latin America and Caribbean. I also work in the Ministry of Environment in my country, in the Department of Climate Change, in the sectional adaptation. So, I'm glad to be here.
Hi, my name is Cécile. I come from France, from Strasbourg, where I will start a master in human rights this year. I'm also a member of Climate, and like Juliette and Miriam, I'm part of Coping My City. I'm the research coordinator, so I work more specifically on the negotiation drafts we use in the simulation to empower youth people and learn a lot about this education process.
Hello, I'm Juliette. I'm from Paris. I'm also a member of Climate. I am with the research team. And in September, October, I try to organize a webinar with a member of the research project of indigenous people in climate.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Gavilan, Peruvian Swiss citizen. My master's degree in environmental science with background in sociology and biochemics. I currently work as a project manager in the healthcare department in Switzerland. I'm also a member of Climate, working on water resources and climate change in Peru, in the highlands. Used to work on indigenous rights through artisanal gold mining in Madre de Dios, and currently seeking for new opportunities.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm a junior at Columbia, majoring in sustainable development. I'm actually here representing Sustainability Media Lab, SML. So I'm just like sitting in and listening, enjoying it.
I'm Stephanie. I'm from Germany. I just finished my master's degree in international relations in South Africa. And I'm also a member of Climate and fellow at one of the conscious of the Climate Fellow.
Hi, my name is Ana Maria. I'm from Colombia. I just finished my undergraduate program on environmental engineering, and I am part of the Visions program on climate.
Hi everyone, I'm Eleonora. I'm Italian. I recently finished my double degree in business law in Paris and Rome. So now currently I'm also part of the Climate organization, and I'm a project coach. This year I've been working on a new law case, so it's about adaptation, of course. Not in southern countries, but still it has problems of awareness and adaptation, so kind of related to the government.
Hi everyone, my name is Marie. I coordinate the research team for the Climate. I'm currently studying environmental policy and science. And I'm particularly interested in the link between environmental protection and also alleviating poverty, working with vulnerable populations. So it's quite interesting. Thank you for the presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Tatiana, and I am also a member of Climate. I'm working on the research of indigenous populations, and in Vancouver, I'm part of an organization called 450 Flower, which is like a spoof of the 350, and we're working to stop the pipeline from the tar sands that goes from, that's going to go through British Columbia to Kitimat. So I'm working on that.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia, and I work here at the Earth Institute. I work in development-focused climate change adaptation. projects on the research side of it, mostly working with communities to develop tools for financial tools for adaptation.
Hi, my name is Mondil. I'm studying economics at Hunter College, so the other side of the city. I'm not related to any climate-related institutes, but I'm interested in this impact investing. So I thought
Hi, I'm Nadav. I'm one of the organizing team, and I work at the Center for Biodiversity and Conservation at the American Natural History.
Hi everybody, I'm Alexandre and I'm the webmaster of the climate site, and I'm currently streaming the session on live. And currently my job is to manage the environmental aspects when you build warehouse in France. So why not? We need me maybe, I don't know.
Okay, hello once more. I'm Bindu Bandari and I'm from Nepal. Currently I'm doing my undergraduate in veterinary science and I'm a member of Climates, and I have been newly recruited in Climates as a Master of Cope in my city.
I'm Noella. I'm a member of Climate, and we work on a research project called Indigenous People in Tatiana, Juliet, and another Tatiana ring. I fell in love with Indigenous people since when I went back home to my country, and I just looked at the way they were living. It was different from the rest of the society, so I felt like we had to do something, and I got involved with that. But I'm a paralegal now.
Hi, I'm Hugo. I'm a friend of Climate and I'm documenting the whole workshop. I'd like to interview you both.
All right, then, gentlemen. So this is the fun part. You have any questions to our speaker, and this is the moment.
We have 10 minutes for the questions, and if you have any questions for our presenters, then you can present your question right now.
Okay. I have a question for Anna. So does Ruta, do they own any of the land, or is it owned solely by the farmers?
So we own 7 hectares in Navajo province. That's where, and I say we kind of loosely, Runa as the organization, especially the business side. And they have the factory, the processing factory. It's where we have all of our offices. It's where we hold some of the workshops, although most of the workshops are held in communities. And then we have a large, it's actually the largest in Ecuador and Amazon, nursery. So for both, and we grow hardwood saplings and also what you said. And then we have a small crop science laboratory, really where we prep most of the samples that go out to get different types of tests done on them. And then we have, I think it's about 2.5 hectares of experimental plots. And so we have plots of different density of Guayusa, plants at a different density, other types of factors being controlled, pruning, different types of organic fertilizers being applied, etc. So the land is used in order to further the knowledge of how to best grow the crop, and that knowledge is always shared with the public.
I've also got a question for you. Where's the energy drink actually made? Is it made in Ecuador, or is it made in the US?
So the processing, we have a factory down there where the processing is done, and it's exported in big sacks. The dry way you said in different sizes, and then the energy drink is made here. It would be very expensive and very sort of carbon footprint heavy to make it in Ecuador and then ship it here. So we just ship it that way. But then the product that's sold in Ecuador is made in Ecuador.
And do you also have a question? And we have a question for Una.
Carrie?
Me?
Okay, I actually have a question for all of you, so I can just ask you for the questions. So the first one is, can you give us an example of the principle in environmental justice and climate justice? You said the general idea, just have an example, and what actually are the impacts of this environmental justice principles, and how are they concreted in the society, in USA society? So what were the developments? And for Runa, you have a company, and then you have a foundation. So the foundation basically helps population, while the company makes profit, so it's a for-profit. My question is there ever going to be the possibility that the actual business can fund as well the foundation without having always to ask for external funds, to a Finland Foundation, to other private investors? So is it ever going to be possible for a business located, for example, in South American countries to not only profit of productivity, but also help indigenous people without having to always recover to other institutions that can help other projects that cannot live upon business? And the third is, the question is, while defending land property, you go directly to the indigenous people. How about the governmental institutions of these countries? Are they more? Do they prefer actually that the indigenous people acquisite their land properties, or are they more negotiating with the oil companies? Because maybe the oil companies are actually is a really nice negotiation where each of them gets something, and so the indigenous people are actually left a bit aside, so that this is your goal, without passing through the governmental institutions. So is there interaction with what you do with the government?
Sure. That's all heavy-loaded questions. But for mine, I guess it's pretty simple. If you look at the principles of environmental justice, the 17 principles of environmental justice, and I wanted to pull them up. They're easily Googleable, so if you ever feel like you want to see them for yourself. The first one, just to give you an example, it affirms the sacredness of Mother Earth, ecological unity, and the interdependence of all species, and the right to be free from ecological destruction. So if you think about it from that perspective of saying this is environmental justice, it's saying that us as humans, we don't put ourselves above a polar bear. It's not us versus the polar bear. It's how do we continue to build so that both of us can stay alive by 2050. And so what that looks like. And then beyond that, it gets into more, more politicized versions of which you talk about opposing military occupation, repression, and exploitation of lands, peoples, and cultures, and other life forms. Here's the thing about the United States military is the largest polluter in the world. Now, unfortunately, the U.S. military is also not regulated when it comes to the pollution that they put out throughout the world. Now, when we think about war, we think about, oh, this is devastating what's happening in Iraq. This is devastating what's happening in the Gaza Strip. But we don't think about the environmental impact that happens even beyond once that war is over. So that's a real conversation that a lot of impacted communities have to look at. Also, in a lot of communities, especially more low-income communities, that's where you'll find military bases. If you look in Southeast Washington, D.C., that's where you'll find the U.S. Naval academies. That's where you'll find naval bases. That's where you'll find the Andrews Air Force bases. And a lot of things happen on those bases. They do a lot of testing of different weapons. They do a lot of testing of chemicals in those different areas. Beyond that, it's reproductive rights. So the ability to have a say over your own body. So a lot of times when people think about reproductive rights, they only think about birth control. And they think about our right to be able to not have a baby. But there's also the ability to have the right to have a baby and to be able to live within your own family. A lot of people, when we think about our own territories here in the United States, go back to Puerto Rico, and you can think about communities that were forced to sterilize because they said your not of an income that we think that you should be able to take care of a child. Now that's based off of, you know, for lack of a better word, that's based off of a capitalist identity of your economic resources. That's based off of me saying you don't have enough American dollars. What is the American dollar even backed by? Who even knows anymore? But beyond that, they're telling you that you don't have the economic stability to have a child. And this was actual things that happened in Puerto Rico in our American history, where you had whole communities that were sterilized. So much so that they had to close schools because people weren't allowed to have children anymore. Now, that also happens in other places, and that's when we talk about environmental justice, because a lot of times when people say, you know, this conversation, it doesn't always come to the forefront, but it oftentimes happens where people say, well, we would have less of a climate change issue if we had less people on the earth. And people need to think about family planning and how many children that they have. Now, who's telling this to the lady on TLC with 19 children? But oftentimes it happens in low-income communities and in immigrant communities where we have that conversation about that. It also has to deal with, when we look at our principles of just climate policy, I'll bring that up. One of the biggest things, they're really simple. It's like keep fossil fuels in the ground. If we have all of these different solutions like solar and wind that are actually viable, how come we're not really investing that time to really develop those in a larger way? So it's great what the Rainforest Institution is doing around bringing solar and wind to indigenous communities, because not only are you bringing them power, but you're also bringing them power, the power to be able to hold and support their own electrical power. The ability to have that is amazing, and most people don't think about that, especially when you think about your resources. If we talk about here in the United States, when you think about Detroit, and you have, you know, thousands of families, hundreds of families that are low income that get their water cut off. Based off of what reason? Based off of the power that the state has, and taking away the power for people to have a human right to water. Now, that is an actual human right under our United Nations, is the human right to sanitation and the human right to water. Now, if you take away people's water rights, that means that they don't have the right to have a shower. That means that they don't have the right to really have proper restroom facilities within their own home, and you're violating someone's human rights. So those are little things that you can talk about. Also, beyond that, just to keep it really short and sweet, one more thing, is requiring community participation. That is a very huge thing when we talk about climate justice, when we talk about environmental justice. Some of the biggest things are just making sure that people even know that these public comment periods are happening in their own communities, that there are environmental boards that are made up of members of different communities. Now, how do you get appointed to those environmental boards? Who makes those decisions? Those are things where we say we need to require community participation. Most recently, we're based in DC, but we are all across the nation. We're also, our fiscal sponsor is based in New Orleans. It's the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice. But in DC, there was a closing of a power plant. They were going to decommission this power plant, but they were not telling the community members about what was going to happen with that land post the decommissioning of that power plant. Now, they put out a notice, but they put it in the Register, which no one reads unless you are a lawyer. Like, the average community member of this community is not reading the Register. They didn't put it out to community members in the different local newspapers. They didn't put it on the web. So that was one of the little simple things that we did, was just putting together a petition so that we could extend the public comment process, and so that we could have true community engagement on the decommissioning of that power plant and what would happen with that land. Now, one of the biggest things about it is they said that they were going to clean up, but they didn't say that they were going to clean up the land around the power plant. And that's where the communities live, where they have been having that dust and that ash coming from that power plant and going on to their communities, going into their groundwater water. And they weren't being told whether or not they were actually going to clean up their neighborhoods from that historical pollution that happened there. So those are just a few examples, just to keep it sweet.
Ms. Gary, just one more thing. So, just in a simple way, how do we proceed with caution in empowering the most vulnerable in the simplest way ever. So how can we proceed with caution? Is there any policy?
Well, I think proceeding with caution, that's a great one. I think the biggest thing around that is oftentimes when people decide, okay, this is the new thing du jour. So to give an example of dealing with natural gas. Natural gas, they said, okay, it's less carbon intensive, so all of a sudden it became the thing du jour, and so everyone wanted to utilize natural gas. All of a sudden you have an eco park in Houston that focuses on how they utilize vehicles on natural gas instead of on gasoline. And that becomes a thing du jour, not thinking about what are the larger implications of natural gas. So really taking the time to actually study what happens, what are the long-term effects of a technology beyond just what are the next 10, 20 years, but what is it going to look like 200, 1,000, really looking at it from that. And then, so that's that caution in the face of uncertainty. And also, with climate change, there's a continuous idea of rush, rush, rush. We have to rush because the world is about to end and there's a chicken and she's telling you that the sky is falling down. So we all have to rush, rush, rush. Taking a few moments, taking a deep breath, looking at the big picture. That's what the caution in the face of uncertainty is. And you all are like an amazing group. The only thing I could think about was like the Planeteers. You all have an amazing group of extremely intelligent minds here. So I'm so excited about the ability to see where you all will go. And just, if this is the first time that you've heard about domestic environmental justice, I'm excited about the potential to see that knowledge blossom, because there's so much more to learn about it.
Thank you.
I think that, yeah, I'm going to answer your question. So we actually purposefully, at first the business, obviously, but now that sort of business has been going, so we have a business ID like a registered business in Ecuador and also a registered business in the U.S. that kind of take care of different parts of the supply chain. And we actually, at first we sort of said, when we were having trouble fundraising as well, hey, you guys should give us money. We're a Bruno Foundation, we support so much of your work, we help you be a social business. But actually the point is that it's a separate model. And that provides us with a little bit more leverage to push back and be a little bit of a watchdog over the organization. Because there are going to be conflicts between what the business says is best for business and what we think is best for the farmers, what we think is best for the land. And they really do things in a very conscious and sustainable way. I don't want to kind of say that they're just run like any other completely capitalist for-profit business. But I will say that we have had moments where we have to come in and help the business figure out how to best address a problem that they're having with a particular community, or advise them, maybe even if they haven't asked for the advice, on how we think that they should best address certain issues in their business. And I don't think that we would have the same leverage and the same power to do that and the same voice if we didn't have our own funding.
The independence of your funding is actually what makes you be a good negotiator.
Yeah.
It may be in the future, will there ever be a business model that is able to compel the profitable part and at the same time be good for the social aspect? I think it's the goal of all these amazing projects that are done in South America and East Asia to arrive at a point where one of these projects is profitable and it's good for the society as well. And it's kind of an utopistic ideal, and I know, but your effort is so amazing that it just takes that little step forward to actually be, perfectly profitable and perfectly sociable and helping the culture, and the farmers afterwards can actually work for the business company and the integration of the society and the company.
Yeah, no, there's actually, that's an interesting point, and I think, there's a few points on that. One, the Ecuadorian government put a $500,000 investment into the business side. And that part of the plan for that is for farmers and farmers cooperatives and employees. And we employ, or not we, the business side employs about 30 people in Ecuador, and 22 of them are indigenous people in Napo province. And so these are people who have, they're being paid obviously a steady income. They're learning all kinds of new skills. I mean, it's a really kind of cool opportunity when people get to work with, and they go out to the communities and they kind of teach the workshops and they're, work with the farmers. But the point is that they eventually will own the shares that the government owns, and the government is planning to sell the shares to the farmers. I think there's some payment plan, some discount. I'm not really sure how it's working out. The details actually aren't exactly clear, but that's supposed to happen eventually too. So there is sort of this hope that there's more integration into the business side.
All right, Mr. Tom, you wanna?
Do we work for the government? That was the question. Right?
Yes.
We.
For the land rights. And land rights, oil companies, and government. What are the balance of power?
Well, yeah, that was the question. Right, so, right, absolutely. I mean, in a place like Peru, and I've worked in other countries in Latin America, in Indonesia, okay, for example, Peru, 80% of their GDP comes from extracting minerals or hydrocarbons. And that hasn't really changed much, and there's not much initiative for that balance to shift, maybe towards developing their own industries, for example. And so, with that kind of dependence, the government's main priority is attracting foreign direct investment from companies that are going to take out gold, copper, oil, what have you. And so, that's the priority. For example, precisely the legal case we're working on now, which has been expired, this concession has been expired August 2015, it provides where the pollution was, provides 62% of the revenue for the entire province of Loreto. Yeah, in the north of Iquitos and Cabo. Madre de Dios, almost the entire budget is from mining, and now there's a couple of, there's a natural gas lot going in there. If you work down there, you know what I'm talking about. So the priority of the government is going to be oil. So yeah, that's the closest relationship. Indigenous people are seen as in the way, if anything. And so with the negotiations, we're negotiating with the government, precisely because rights are being violated. We would argue they should be getting part of the canon or royalty. If you're gonna do oil, do it clean. I mean, the contamination is just a problem. In Madre de Dios, and we work down there with the mining, is the worst I've ever seen. And
are you compared to international law, the local law?
Yeah.
On what grounds of the government?
Well, we don't really litigate. I feel like litigating is a long battle that ends up with don't get anything, but there are people, go to DC and go to see it before they're going to American court. Not that it doesn't have value because it does set precedents and standards for sure. But yeah, absolutely. When you're doing a legal negotiation, you use every tool at your disposal, and including international law. It's actually far more progressive than most national law. So, but your best strength really in these kind of things is kind of compelling the government to sit down, I think, and try to find a reasonable solution. If that doesn't work, then yeah, get what you can in American court. 85 years is a lot it takes to.
We're actually running out of time, but we're gonna do something really, really crazy right now. Like we need like 2 groups. We have 5 minutes, and we need like 2 groups. Like 2 groups. One's gonna be policy, and the other one's gonna talk on program. So you're gonna come up with a policy that will empower the indigenous people, and the other group is gonna come up with a program that's gonna empower the not the indigenous people, just the vulnerable populations. All right. So 2 groups, please. We have 5 minutes, and you.
Yeah, just
do it to your best ability.
Sorry.
What if we don't have much time, we have minutes?
The only thing, the only thing I wanted to add when it was caution in the face of uncertainty, which is really basic, was it's also adaptation and being able to have good emergency prep. It's very simple. Being able to know that we don't know what climate change is going to look like, but we should at least be prepared for it.
Yes.
All
We have 5 minutes, and that's 4 minutes and 30 seconds. 4:20. Yeah, development policy and programs. The policy programs. Anything that matters. Program, policy. Program? Yeah, program, policy. 1 or 2 programs, 1 or 2
D'accord. Ouais. Je vais regarder alors.
You're part of the vulnerable population. You can talk about equality, if there are being discriminated from the habitat of society. What kind of
What about all those people that came there?
Well, let me
Is there they wanted to get the payment to extract oil from the they wanted to set up this trust fund where countries would pool funding that would go towards programs within Ecuador so that they would not allow it's kind of aid for ecosystem services and aid for basically keeping the carbon in the ground. And it didn't work because there wasn't enough funding that was put in. Only Norway and Scandinavian did it. So they didn't I feel like without a policy that is transferring some sort of wealth that makes up for the wealth that's in fossil fuel resources, the mineral resources. Unless you figure out how to change the economic incentives, there's just so much rush towards extracting and destroying these communities. That's what I would say with that.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to wrap things up.
We need someone who's gonna tell us about what kind of policy you can upload and the program.
Sorry, I didn't say that. I don't think that's like a group discussion. Yeah, I like that, yeah. You wanna come on?
That's a program.
Okay.
You know, it's
Well, that's
no,
not
it's a great idea, but it's like the things that can be regulated and things like yeah. So that's the difference.
Integrate the economic, detect the problem and try to find the.
But they both came together because if you were an active policy, there would be a program.
Cool. All right, thank you very much.
Alright, so we want to hear from the programs.
Okay, good. And the only way is.
So guys, I think that's what we'll do. We're having a campus tour now that's going to be super short. If you want to take a break or go somewhere else, no problem. If you guys are staying here, if you want to have questions. If not, we will leave. And we're a big group, so even if you want to stay here and have a break, you can. Oh, you haven't finished? Yeah, hi. Okay, 2 minutes. We want one representative from this group and from that group as well, present the idea. So, from policy group, would like to.
Really quick on policy, creating economic incentives to not rush towards extraction. So if there is a way to value the services and actually have the funding and economic opportunities that are an alternative to extracting oil or minerals or other things, setting up policies to do that. And that's as far as we got in the limited discussion we had.
And from programs,
We have two ideas. So the first one, I was very sensitive when you said that some people went for help for legal procedures to help the indigenous people that negotiate with all companies. So I think that could be an idea of providing like a pool of lawyers available, and then when all the vulnerable populations really need legal procedures and they absolutely don't know, then the lawyer can come and at a very low financial rate help them.
Yeah,
That's
right on.
Bringing this more on an international level, just like human rights, so be able to address it. But the second idea was more to try to connect communities and NGOs together, like in the Rainforest Land Hospitals in Malaysia. So we were wondering, do the communities in Malaysia also know that it has in South America communities facing similar problems of logging, and how can we enforce communities to work together as vulnerable populations? So trying to make more active at home.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing we're working on this year is looking at the feasibility of a global platform, which is road mapping.
But not just within the organization, but between organizations.
That's what I mean, that's great, like global, because there's little pockets of great work going on that often don't know about each other.
Because sometimes there are many organizations that are working in things that are very similar, but they don't really know.
They found a way to solve it, and they should share that with people in Peru.
Yes,
it's like.
I mean, yeah.
A few years ago, thinking plans for introducing.
Exactly, yeah. Really interesting session.
Thank you very much. If anyone wants to, I'm not going to be around a lot this week, but if anyone wants to get more questions about our work or looking for how you can help, email.
Okay. We can provide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
At the end, next session will be negotiation Rio from Paris to Europe. See you next time.
You remember